Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at Botalz Ramp Dragon. Why? Because Dragon is quite popular and I don't mind doing a deck that I've actually got all the cards for. So why not? I'm not the hugest fan of Dragon, but this deck is quite good. Especially with the amount of healing and just the pure burst damage that it can really do. Especially in the late game with something like Zeus or Isafil or Polyroar. Like, just having the variety of healing and burst there is quite good, along with double Lucifer, Sakwa, Baha. It's really hard to kill this deck with pure aggression, so if you do come up against mostly aggro decks, you can do pretty well. Other dragon decks are about 50-50 depending on which deck it is. And then of course Control Blood, which I haven't actually been able to face with this deck because I just haven't seen Control Blood on ladder today, which is unfortunate. Rune though, pretty easily gets eaten by this deck. Unless, of course, it is D-Shift, which can be a little trickier unless you decide, to go aggro super early. Usually you can be okay. So we'll get right into some games and check it out. First game is against Rune. Rune and Dragon, quite popular. I don't know why right now. It just seems to be the way it is. Earlier I was playing and it was Forest and Dragon, but so Dragon's probably one of the more popular decks that you're going to see come up against. So it's a good idea that if you want to play something that's going to be probably the more common, or you're looking for a counter, I recommend either a good Dragon deck or just something that purely counters Dragon, which probably mid-Shadow or something like that, if you've got a good structure for it and know how to play the decks, of course. Each matchup requires a different thought process. So Staircase to Paradise, most people discounted this card with the nerf. I still think it's really good in Dragon decks in particular. In something like Anatomy, it's definitely a lot worse. But Dragon, I think it still has its place, especially since 2-drop slot in Dragon isn't that big, it's not that popular. You're looking at not too many things to contest it, and being able to play it for a 6 on... for 5 with the Enhance and getting 3 draws can be quite worthwhile in the late game. Especially since you're running a lot of bigger followers. So of course, as normal, trading, ramping, all that sort of stuff. Especially when you're going second, spending an extra ramp just to control the early game isn't always the worst case with this deck. But I am no Dragon expert, so who knows. So it's good though, we get this boost. Especially when Sibyl's going to get its own boost. So it's quite easy to ramp up to, 8 or 9 by about turn 5. That's pretty normal for most dragons. You can usually reach 10 by around turn 6. With an average to good hand. And this is where something like Staircase is awesome. Just because when they do trade, you get that value off it. Especially if it's on 1 before the next turn. And since this deck can pretty easily burn through its early resources, it's great to be able to draw into your late game stuff. That's why usually I'll discard some high end stuff depending on the matchup. Plus you've got enough to really clear any big followers. The only thing I had a little trouble with before would have been B&B, just because it was hard to remove, but with the right draw you could remove anything. Really pushing that Halo Golem. Lucky for me, I can just easily play Baha, clear out the Earth Sigil. Of course, Baha is susceptible to a lot of rune cards, which is why I played it here. I felt like playing it here would draw out this turn, meaning next turn I can really play whatever I want. Lucky it was pretty much right. I mean, being able to use the Saha to really play the Lucifer gets me that extra 4 health. I can drop the Unica, which is pretty much has to be traded with. Plus, if you can keep your health high against Burn Rune, the odds of them burning you out is very low, because they're going to use most of their stuff trying to get you down early. Meaning, once you get into the late game, as long as you've healed up, there's really nothing they can do. But of course, Breath Salamander, still a great card. do decide to take the evolve just to ram for 6. Putting them down to 14 is pretty good value, especially with next turn. Not so lucky though, Professor of Taboos. Not something I want to have to trade with here. But using Sybil and that evolve is going to be worth it, I guess. Lucifer may have been better. I could have got the 4 damage to face and then just traded into the 3-5. But yeah, it was a tough one. There was a few different options. I preferred to go with Sybil just for its value there. The 3 health is good. I want to use Lucifer probably more for healing than for damage. And Zeus is going to pretty much close out the game because there's just nothing that they can really do to Zeus. So with 1 card in hand, 2 DODs, 1 Prince of Taboos, the odds of them having another set of removal to get rid of Zeus and then following up with Isra or Lucifer would have easily closed out the game anyway. The next game against Enlist, which is just another dragon. I mean, dragon's a tough one just because there is so many different top ends dragon can have. They do a very similar thing, but you've got your aggressive combo, you've got, you know, your more laid back one like this, which is more healing orientated. There's just so many different things to expect with these decks. And if it is combo, you know, this deck doesn't do that great. But of course combo dies a lot easier to other decks, so each one has its strength and weakness. Again, Staircase, good on 2. Not too bad to have another one for later on. Especially when we've already got Dragonite, which would be awesome to play out. I mean, if it died here, I'd be able to drop another Dragonite and Staircase together. Probably be a little too much draw, but probably wouldn't be too bad. Unfortunately, they weren't able to remove that, so I can pretty much just use it. No point going face yet. Plus, with both of them on board, you know, they're pretty good. Being able to just threaten them with them, and if not, they trade into them and I get value out of it, so you can't really go wrong with them. It's a pity they're gonna be lost to rotation, I believe. Sybil, even after nerf, still probably the best mid card for Dragon. Just the ramp, the healing, its body being a little more manageable is good, but I mean, once that thing rotates out, it'll be interesting to see what spot Dragon is left in, especially if they don't get any kind of like reprint or similar print to that card. It's going to be really weird to see where Dragon goes with the next couple expansions. But not too bad at all. We can take half the health this turn. Well, at the same time, I was tempted to play Staircase. I didn't really want to, just in case they did kill something, because overdrawing by, what, probably an extra 2 or 3 cards would be pretty bad. Although, being able to get a Zeus would have been the best play. It's just a pity I didn't manage to get one.
All must come to an end.
But Sahaquil is great when comboed with things, so why not use it now? Pulling off that Israfil. Getting some pretty good value. And still being able to send 4 to face. So 15 health is a pretty good spot, as long as they don't have some combo, so basically anything big will be dangerous. But they mustn't have had anything else, they just kinda gave up, expecting that I'd have lethal next turn. And the final matchup for the video is another Rune deck. Rune, for some reason, was popular while I was using Dragon. I'd really love to know what algorithms they use for matchmaking, because sometimes it just seems like you get thrown up against, you know, the very similar decks depending on what you're playing. Like as soon as I play Dragon, you know, I see Rune, I go and play Rune and I come up against Forest, so on. Very interesting to know what's going on behind the scenes a little bit. But we may never know. So nothing too big to play here. Staircase on 2, as you can tell, is always the optimal play for me. If I can ever play Staircase on 2, I'm normally going to do it. Just because by the time it's activated, you've used up most of your cards, you're ready to play your big stuff, and just go ham with it. So the only thing it really contests is Dragon Oracle, and even then, you've got to just have it in your hand, so having more options for a true drop is better, I think. Plus we're able to ramp a little bit, which will set up the Draconics quite well, putting us ahead of the game. Especially with the double draw. It is going to mean that Staircase isn't going to be quite as good though. Luckily it's going to have a little bit longer timer because I haven't been playing any followers. My opponent just completely skipping their turn. Lucky for me, Sybil. Mainly for that ramp. Being able to ramp up is one of the biggest like cheats in a card game, I think. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of things, but being able to just skip the fact that you need cost restrictions to keep things balanced, it makes it really hard not to end up with broken things. At least that's how I've always seen it. Of course, we're going to get some decent draw here. Luckily we're at about the right spot for a triple draw.
I've got to take a break.
Sybil! The old powerful draw card. Plus we don't need a ramp anymore, so we're mainly just using it as a body and to heal. Plus they've bricked most of their board now. Without anything else, they can't really play much. The only downside to that, though, was the fact that I've now pretty much got to do something. Do make a small mistake, should have rammed the rats first. Would have been good to get at least that 2 damage in before throwing the Baha down. I was just more concerned with clearing their board and forgot that I should probably attack with the rats. And even though I have end turn like confirm, I just clicked it anyway. So the one bonus to Oz is the fact that they're pretty much going to burn all their spells that they don't use. And luckily they didn't get a DOD, which I'm sure is what they're aiming for. So with that, I've got 17 damage, putting them to 1. Even if they manage to find the options to clear, I don't think they're going to be able to heal, and thus, as long as Israfil can attack a follower, that's going to be lethal. And if they can't clear anyway, it's not going to matter.
I'm just a mage who's as old as dirt.
So for me, this isn't bad at all.
Back in the old days. I'm all tuckered out.
Nice little crimson, but can't get past that Baha. So this deck is pretty fun. It's got plenty of healing, so your games will be slightly longer than most of your other kind of decks like aggro, or even just, you know, a more storm orientated ramp dragon. But I think fun's the most important part, and I had pretty good time playing this deck. It's got lots of different options, and I like being able to stall out the opponent and make them run out of removal and different things like that. So if you want to check this out, link to this will be in the description below to the deck list. You can hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.